You and I are watching Putin obsess over one thing: owning Donetsk. To get it, he's pawned everything Russia actually has left. Hundreds of thousands of men, ancient tanks, and massive cash bonuses. He fired his generals, dumping Shoigu and letting Gerasimov run the circus. He pivoted tactics, swapping failed tank charges for desperate infantry crawls. Then came the motorcycle charges, and finally, those dreaded human waves. The propaganda machine stayed busy, pretending every tiny village capture was triumph. 4 years later, and they haven't even grabbed a quarter of Donetsk. That front line? It hasn't moved an inch in months. They're still smashing against the Sloviansk defense line like waves. Moscow calls it a fortress belt, but every attack ends in disaster. Massive losses, zero gains. It's the same sad story every time. Chasiv Yar is the absolute meat grinder right now, pure chaos. On April 18th, the 71st Division tried one last desperate breakthrough. They rolled in with 5 tanks and 10 armored vehicles. Big mistake. They even threw in motorcycles and quad bikes. Yes, seriously. Ukraine's 24th Brigade just used drones to end the whole party. The attack failed totally. Most of those vehicles are now scrap metal. It's officially one of the most embarrassing Russian defeats at Chasiv Yar. Down south, the Kostiantynivka line is just as brutal for them. 2 motorized divisions are still trying to find a weak spot. They're sending tiny groups in to poke at the Ukrainian defenses. They've made tiny gains in gray zones, but it's all temporary. Ukrainian counterattacks usually just wipe these groups out or push them back. And that's when Ukraine brings out the really scary stuff. The drone units are hunting, and they don't miss their targets. They're hitting supply hubs 70 kilometers deep into Russian-held territory. Essentially, we can see that Russia's safe zones are actually death zones. Drones and artillery hit the Russians before they even start moving. When you look at the math, the actual cost is horrifying. Russia's burning 316 soldiers for every single square kilometer. That's the butcher's bill for every tiny patch of ground in Donetsk. A year ago, it only cost them 160 men. The body count has basically tripled. Talk about a bad investment. And after all that, they still don't even own Donetsk yet. That's bad enough, but the real horror story is still hidden. Total losses have topped 1,319,000 soldiers. Most of that carnage happened right there on the Donetsk front. Donetsk isn't just a battleground anymore. It's an absolute graveyard. It's old-school Russian tactics meeting modern tech, and losing badly. Russia's losing because there's literally a barrier falling from the sky. By 2026, Ukraine's drone game has become totally unstoppable. Russian soldiers are getting wiped out without ever seeing a soul. They're finished before they even get close enough to fire back. We're watching a high-tech wall simply crush a crumbling old-world army. The field data confirms everything. Drones are now claiming 3 out of every 4 lives on the Donetsk front. Out of 316 soldiers, 237 simply vanish under these sky-high explosions. Here's the trick. Recon drones spot even the tiniest Russian movement. They stalk convoys, supply zones, or command cars from deep behind the front lines. That feed goes to operators who dial in the kill shot immediately. These birds hunt 144 kilometers behind the supposedly safe zone. Basically, the Russian rear is just a big target range now. And AI systems handle 80% of these surgical hits on their own. Just imagine the chaos whenever Russian command tries to move fresh meat to the front. Units get shredded by fiber optic drones before they even leave their camps. Truck lines get hammered, and ammo dumps go up in smoke every day. Command hubs are blinking out one by one as the pressure mounts. Just getting to the trench has become a lethal game of survival. Pavlo Pizar from the presidential office breaks down the whole messy process. He shows how this tech gap is making old-school war look ancient. Donetsk losses tripled because Ukraine now completely owns the sky at a very small scale. Ukraine is swamping these sectors with 30% more drones than Russia. It is not just about quantity, it is about whose gear actually works. Fiber optic drones use physical cables, so electronic jamming is basically useless against them. Russian fiber optic tech sits at 24%. They are sitting ducks. Ukraine is not just outflying them. They are literally bypassing the shields entirely. This tech gap is costing Russia everything on the ground right now. For Ukraine, the cost is peanuts compared to the massive targets they hit. A March 2026 report from Madyer says neutralizing a soldier costs under $1,000. Million-dollar tanks and expensive armored cars are being trashed every single day. Months of training gone in a second, buried in the Donetsk mud. All that carnage delivered by a drone that costs only $1,000. We are looking at the most insane price imbalance in military history. The top brass cannot hide the truth of this tech disaster any longer. Even Alexander Sladkov, the Kremlin's favorite TV voice, is sounding worried. He just dropped a shocking truth bomb about the slaughter out there. The top brass are panicking in meetings, but the body count keeps rising. You and I should grasp the gravity when state media starts confessing. The Kremlin's propaganda machine is finally failing to hide the ugly reality. The real dirt on the ground is way darker than the official reports. There is nobody left to swap out the broken units in the trenches. Units are stuck because moving means certain death by Ukrainian drone swarms. Commander Khodakovsky gives us an even nastier look at their crumbling defense. Russian troops are hiding in basements because their defense is a total joke. Meanwhile, Ukraine is turning every tall building into a lethal lookout post. They are sniping trapped positions from above with scary, surgical precision. This whole mess is not strategy, it is just one man's ego. Everyone knows the Donetsk push is only happening for one stupid reason. General Muradov is just desperate for a gold star from Chief of Staff Gerasimov. Messy attacks are killing the last bit of trust we have left. Leadership is a joke to the troops, while our body count just keeps climbing higher every single day. Moscow is still playing mind games to hide how bad things really are here. We're launching tiny, pointless raids all over the place just to look busy. It is all a fake show of winning. We are trying to trick everyone into thinking the enemy is about to break before we do. But honestly, we're the ones who are breaking. Reports from April 18th and 19th show our attacks near those towns were total disasters. We are just poking their lines and getting nowhere fast. Here is the truly sad part. We are wasting the very soldiers we actually need for the real fight later on. The guys meant for the main push are being sacrificed. Moscow is torching the army just to put on a cheap show for the cameras. We are digging our own graves with this manpower crisis. If you want to see how bad we're failing, just look inside our own ranks. We don't look like an army anymore. We look like a massive pile of junk. Those shiny propaganda clips fall apart the second you actually step on the field. Just listen to this leaked call from 23-year-old Vladimir, a fresh recruit. Talking to his sister, he spills the ugly truth about us. We have nothing left. We're paying for our own gear now. He tells her he had to spray paint the rust on his rifle just to look like a soldier. At this rate, we'll be paying out of pocket for our own grenades, too. We're getting plastic helmets that won't stop a bullet. It's a total death sentence. Our scopes look like cheap toys. Online videos show our own guys laughing at the garbage gear they're forced to use. The government lied about outfitting us, and now we're paying the price. Now our families have to pay for our war. Mothers are spending every cent they have just to buy us warm clothes. Wives are buying sleeping bags and armor just so we don't die out here. Stores are empty, and the black market is bleeding everyone dry right now. Vests cost 500% more now than they did just a few weeks ago. We just can't afford it. A former pilot confesses exactly how we fell apart from within. The old men got rich, while we didn't get a single kopeck. Generals relax in their mansions, while they strip our warehouses bare of every last item. For 8 long years, over 12,000 cases of our own leaders stealing our uniforms and our gear. Right out of the supply depots. Our £58 billion budget is sitting inside the pockets of some greedy generals. We're out here fighting high-tech drones with nothing but our rusty old guns. This is what the world's supposed second-best army actually looks like today. One expert says, "We were never even ready for this. We didn't have the trucks or the gear to handle this many men. No supplies, rusty guns, and wearing gear our moms bought us from home. We are just sitting ducks for those cheap $1,000 enemy drones." Putin basically admitted it himself. When asked why recruits die so fast, he said training only lasts 10 days. Talk about a total system failure at the very top. Civilians who spent their service shoveling snow are being thrown into the fire. No target practice, no training, just a one-way ticket to the Donetsk front. 10 days of prep and a rusty rifle. They are trying to fight high-tech Ukrainian drones with that junk. This whole mobilization is just a social nightmare. In remote regions, you are 6 times more likely to be drafted than in Moscow. This unfair pressure is triggering a massive wave of resistance. In Siberia, people are actually shooting draft officers. Recruitment offices are burning down, one by one. Even activist Yelena Popova says the professional standards are dead. There is zero selection process left anymore. They are just grabbing anyone and shipping them straight to the front. Take a look at the case of Kirill Berezin. Requests for alternative service are being tossed out, even if killing violates your conscience. Yet the Russian authorities just keep on pushing. To fix the personnel shortage, Parliament actually cleared the way for serious criminals to join the army. It turned the army from a fighting force into an unguided mob. The last-ditch effort? Throwing cash at them. Recruits are promised about $2,400 every month. That is way above average pay, and at first, it worked. Poor villagers volunteered for the money. But that generosity backfired in a big way. A clueless rookie now earns more than the veteran training him. Even retired General Yuri Netkachev is losing his mind. He says he has never seen soldiers make more than their commanders. It is totally nuking what little discipline they had left. Plus, that promised money, it rarely even shows up. Units are not getting paid on time. Some are not getting paid at all. Payroll is eating a third of the defense budget. But the cash is flowing to the bureaucrats, not the guys fighting. They are offering bonuses for blowing up tanks, trying to buy some success. You cannot actually buy motivation, though. No faith, no paycheck, and no idea what is happening. When rookies out-earn their bosses, you have a powder keg ready to blow. That is the mess in Donetsk. Ukraine hits with pinpoint accuracy using cheap $1,000 drones. Their fiber optics ignore Russian electronic jamming. They are striking 144 kilometers deep and getting deadlier every month. Meanwhile, Russia sends untrained men to the front with rusty guns. And they cannot even pay the money they promised. Russian generals are feeding the meat grinder with unplanned offensives. It is just more fuel for the collapse. Former commander Valery Zaluzhny has a single word for this unfolding mess. One word: robotization. He laid it all out at Chatham House. Zaluzhny basically drew the blueprint for the wars of the future. Modern conflict has ditched old weapons and tired, outdated tactics. The future belongs to autonomous robotic systems that do not need humans. Donetsk is the lab for this nightmare. His formula is simple. It is about more than just winning. It is about making the bill absolutely unbearable for Russia. We do not need paper treaties, we need high-tech alliances. When you and I look closer, Putin's massive blunder is getting obvious. He is still betting on bodies, while Ukraine quietly pushes back. They are driving the Russian army toward a total breaking point. The Ministry of Defense has the math to prove the disaster. The goal: erasing 50,000 Russian soldiers from the board every single month. That number is way more men than Russia can ever replace. Cross that line, and the Kremlin will have nobody left to fight. And every single month, Ukraine gets a little closer to that edge. Putin's massive mistake is finally becoming crystal clear. He is still clinging to troop counts and old ammunition piles. But this war has become a bill he can no longer pay. Losing 316 soldiers per square kilometer is a clear sign of failure. Donetsk is the black hole where territorial greed swallows the entire future of the Russian army. Zaluzhny's words define the cold, hard nature of this war. It is either survival or the end. Survival is not about who has the most bodies. It is about which side uses technology more wisely. Do not let those big Russian troop numbers fool anyone. Behind those massive numbers is not a modern military force, just a pile of wreckage melting away before $1,000 drones. Donetsk is the best example of a massive army being paralyzed by tech. A multi-million-dollar force paralyzed by cheap and clever little gadgets. This story adds a new chapter every day. So, what do you and I make of this? Drop your take in the comment section below. To stay updated on TGN's deep analyses, subscribe and hit the notification bell right now. Catch us on Spotify to make your long morning commute feel much faster. Thanks for being here.